WCGO, thank you. This is Apache Ramos from New York City, live. And remember, we're still reigning after all these years. WCGO, Harv Roman, and Apache Ramos, always.
From Chicago to the world and from my house to yours, this is Harv Roman with another exciting edition of our House of Freestyle Words and Music interview segment. In the back of your head right now, it's Nelson Fast Forward Cruz, it's Russell Velasquez, it's Michael Levine, it is Louie Lou, collectively known as Fast Forward. Back in 1987, I was introduced to that song by Nelson Fast Forward Cruz and Louie themselves, and through that entire process, I got to meet this week's guest on our Celebrity Hotline Conversation. You go ahead, you find the record, you look it up, you Google it, and you read in the record label from Criminal Records, most of Criminal Records back then, you will see the name of Apache Ramos. We became buddies, we became pals, we became homies, and through the course of that, I came to realize that not only was Apache Ramos part of the Criminal Records crew from back in the day, he also was part of the movie The Warriors, which recently celebrated, wow, what, 30th? Its 30th anniversary. It's been like a year or so now, right? So why not have a conversation with someone who has connections to the freestyle world, obviously, but also connections to a movie which has developed a following, which is incredible. So without further pause, because I don't like to say further ado, I don't know what that means, to the Celebrity Hotline we go. It's Apache Ramos, everybody.
Not only on the AM, but also online and through YouTube and through Ustream and in a variety of ways. So I'll tell you who's on the Celebrity Hotline in case you don't know. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Apache Ramos. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Who would have thunk that almost 30 years from the time that we met, we'd be talking about people being able to listen to this conversation above and beyond a little FM radio signal from 30 years ago. It's insane.
It is insane, but, we're still standing. We're still reigning after all these years.
Well, the funny thing is, talking about this briefly on Facebook, you wind up with one of your guys, makes a post that says, well, I know it's a Chicago interview, but if you go to this app, and if you click on this, you'll be able to hear any radio station ever, where back in the day, the only way you could have gotten WCYC is either by living next door to WCYC, having aluminum foil, maybe a fork, maybe a coat hanger. And now you got one of your guys giving us a tip about TuneIn, where you can get apparently just about any radio station you want. It's insane, the difference between 1986 and 2016.
Exactly. It's a big difference. So, it's been a long time. The 80s, great times.
It has been a long time, and people will have no idea until we talk about it briefly. You've kind of come back from, your 9 to 5s with the anniversary of the Warriors movie, but we kind of got to know each other, throughout a whole nother area of entertainment, which had nothing to do with the movie. I found out about that later along the ways, when we actually met initially, it was because I had a friendship with Nelson Fast Forward Cruz through meeting him through my interviews back in the day, and your name was one of the names on the record label, and you were one of the people that if I would call Criminal Records, you were there.
Yes, I was there with, that was Arthur Baker's label. Arthur Baker and I go back way, we were roommates in college, and I got to work with him through, with Streetwise Records, and we actually started in the record business picking and packing records in a warehouse in Long Island City.
You know, people who are not aware of Streetwise Records, if you did a real quick search, you'd find like IOU.
Yeah, IOU, Rocker's Revenge. We even had Eartha Kitt, Where Is My Man? It was an incredible little label that really turned out. Most people know us for a group out of Boston, a bunch of fellas from the projects in Roxbury called New Edition, and we put out Candy Girl and it blew up. We also had, I helped bring into the label the great Colonel Abrams.
Trapped.
That was great times too.
He's an incredible artist. So you've been in one way, shape, or form been involved in the entertainment industry, from the music to the movies throughout all this time. It's kind of crazy that when I initially got to know you, you were a name on a label when I was playing music. And at the time when I would try to arrange for interviews and stuff, there were certain songs I was like, man, I got to figure out how to get a hold of some of these people. So you'd read a label and then you start trying to dig them up, who you knew, who was connected to who. And through Nelson Cruz was my connection to you back then. And back then it was about, okay, are you going to send me the new Maribel, send me the new Fast Forward, send me the new Baby and Keys? It was all about, radio and records back then. And look at us now, 2016, and somehow, some way, we've managed to remain in contact, which is crazy.
Well, thanks to my daughter turning me on to this thing called Facebook. It's been I've been able to reconnect with people. When I left the record business, I was road managing the Fat Boys, if people remember the Fat Boys. I took them 50 cities in 21 days. I was also a new father. And when I landed in New Orleans, I never had a dad, so my main goal in life after that was to be a father, and I just quit the business completely, the acting, the whole thing, and realized, what am I going to do now? And I said, you know what? I forgot. I have a degree. So I've been in social services for the city of New York, HRA, for the last 26 years. And thanks to my daughter turning me on, Jazz Ray Ramos, Landis, turning me on to Facebook, I've been back acting again and reconnecting with good people like you, Harv.
Well, you're right. I have an image captured, and I have to order it. I know we talked about this off the air, but it's you, your baby, and then you're holding up a big old Orphans poster. So it's like you've become reborn, and your daughter is a huge part of it. I guess she travels with you and helps manage your affairs now, which is kind of shoe on the other foot thing, because Daddy used to manage all of Baby's affairs.
That's right. My daughter, Jazz Ray Ramos Landis, is an incredible girl. I mean, when I left the business, I didn't want nothing to do with it for a lot of reasons, but she started singing, and I was like, oh, no, don't sing. And, my wife, one of the best things about the record business was I met my wife, Miss Ray Champley, who was publicist for Sugar Hill Records and Grandmaster Flash and also Sister Sledge. And come October, we'll be married 32 years. I guess it's a vinyl love affair. But my daughter started singing, and she wound up being a paid performer at the Metropolitan Opera. And from there, I got to see a lot of opera. But she's managing my career now, and we're just a team, But when she got married, she said, Dad, we're not going to hang out like we used to. We have this thing called Facebook, and it's opened up my whole world.
I'm gonna tell a similar story. At one point, I was responsible for doing some promotions on Thursday nights, believe it or not, at Studio 63 here in Chicago. And they started doing their all-ages stuff on Thursdays. My son at the time was a college student at Columbia College, and I says, Anthony, I'll tell you what, if you will do these promotions with me and recruit the college kids to come out, I will give you, I think the deal at the time was I was going to give him one night a month where whatever came in would be his. You know how it goes. You split the door. Well, he decided that he might have been a little too busy to do this. And I'm like, well, Anthony's got this thing called Facebook. He's too busy to help me, so I think I'm going to wind up on Facebook. And man, he got so mad when he saw me on Facebook. It was crazy. I guess he thought I was going to spy on him. And I told him, I said, well, I was trying to get you to do this college stuff, and since you can't do it, I needed to open up a Facebook. And now, 3,000 whatever friends later, Facebook is connecting people like you and I, and it's an incredible thing, really, because I was clicking on it earlier today, and the truth of the matter is, you and I reconnected on Facebook really only 3 years ago. It doesn't seem like it had been. It seemed like it had been a lot longer than 3 years ago, but I guess in 2013, clickety click, and there's a name, Apache Ramos, and I'm like, wait a minute, I remember that name.
I just met somebody on Facebook who has my name, and so I had to check the young brother out. He was like, I used your name because you mean a lot to me, and I think he's from Australia or something. It's amazing. When I got, I thought people forgot about me, and I really wasn't expecting anything out of it, but I was able to reconnect with people always back to elementary school, and I even went to my high school reunion, my 40th, because I'm old now, my 40th high school reunion. So it's been a true blessing. I've gotten movie parts out of it. It's like, Patsy, where have you been all these years? But I had to do what was important to me at that time, and that was to raise my family and to raise my daughter, and I'm glad I did that.
I saw you all these years later. There's a project called High and Tight, and there's Apache Ramos after having been an orphan, all this time.
Oh, man, High and Tight is, I'm looking, in fact, I just spoke to, with Tech, the producer, what's his name? I wrote it down because I don't remember things as much as I used to. Naheem Adil Kunjena, and he's telling me to say that we're going to be at a lot of festivals with the film come to 2017. And we have dinner next Saturday, but I'm pretty excited. It's my first movie where I'm the lead, so I'm looking forward to it.
That's going to be exciting. Hey, didn't you guys have a Warriors reunion at Coney Island, or whatever used to be Coney Island, or did I read that wrong?
No, we had it last year. It was an incredible experience. I was expecting, the promoter was expecting like 1,500, and we got something like 8,000 people. I had lost my voice because, of course, people want me to say, we're going to rain on you. And I love the fans, and I had to leave eventually because I couldn't talk no more. It was like packed, and we got one coming up September 15th through the 18th.
Well, that line is lucrative because back in the day, if you were, let's say, an extra, and it's just you and your fro, okay, there you are. But if you have a line, a couple of things happen. You get paid, and it gives people something to remember you by. And you're right, every radio drop you've ever done, you've probably had to say, this is Apache Ramos, and we're making it rain on WCYC or whatever it was.
The two films I did recently, they wanted the line when I did Cabin in the Hood, and I'm also doing that Vamp Bikers trilogy with New York City bikers, and there's all kinds of people in this thing, and of course I set the line in there, so it's been a blessing, and even when I was 24 years old in 1978 when we did The Warriors, and when Walter Hill hired me, the director, to be in the film, and we had no concept in 1978 that this thing, we would be talking about it in 2016. And I get reminded every now and then, I get that, I call it mailbox money. And it has, it's not a lot of money, but it's a nice reminder that I was part of it. It's like being part of a Super Bowl team or something.
Hey, let's talk about Walter Hill for a minute. Just following you and reading up on the news and getting tagged on certain stories, there was a school of thought with some of the old Warriors crews that Walter Hill might have been trying to keep his name separate from all of the Warrior reunions. And then sure enough, there was an event. Maybe it was the Coney Island one, I'm not certain. And guess who shows up after all this time?
Walter Hill. So he's going to be at this reunion. He's part of this reunion, and also producer Lawrence Gordon. In fact, out of all the films that Walter Hill has done, I've heard Walter say that he gets asked more about the Warriors than like Beverly Hills Cop, which he also directed. That's an amazing thing. I'm honored that so many people, different generations now, remember the film, and it means so much to them at different times. They tell me that when they saw it or when they saw it with their father. I had a friend tell me that his late father was taking him to see Lady and the Tramp, and and then the Warriors was there, and he decided to take him to the Warriors, and he always has that memory of sharing that experience. And also, his father loved my line and loved my afro because I used to rock the fro back then. And, you know, I just recently went fishing with him, and it was just a really nice experience for us, for him to share how much the Warriors meant to him. I hear that a lot from a lot of people.
How do you explain that longevity? Because on the surface, people could just say, hey, that was just a movie. And then people could also say in 2016, it was just a corny movie. It's a bunch of dudes in baseball uniforms running around looking for a gang fight. Yet, there is a cult that follows you guys. There are people, and I'm sure you've met them at your fan conventions, that could recite the lines of like the littlest guy in the Warriors or the baseball cap guys. It's crazy.
And you know what it is? I remember when the Warriors came out in '79, February of '79. There was a lot of static about why did they make this film? It could have caused dissension and rioting, and there was some stabbings here and there. But if you look at the film today compared to today's film, it's very nonviolent. I mean, there's very few violence in the film. I think it was the concept. And it was also the end of the 70s and the beginning of hip-hop and graffiti and all that stuff is all entwined in that movie. And the concept is that if we all got together, we could overcome this depression. And I think that was the reason why people were afraid of the movie. And I think that's the main reason why people still like it. And in the event of all the things that are happening today, it's still relevant. If we stick together, you know, we can be on top. You know, it's fun. I mean, and the other thing is that the cast, we do care about each other. You know, I'm still close to cast members, and we do go out sometimes for dinner for not even an event. We keep in touch. We're all grandfathers now, which is a blessing. But to be a part of something that means so much to so many people, it's really good. It was tough on my daughter dating, though. People thought I was a real crazy gang member.
Well, they should have just analyzed the movie a little bit better because, yes, when you think about the Warriors as a movie, it is entertaining. But there are parts of it that you're like, man, that can't be real. Ain't nobody calling in a radio DJ to get updates on where these gangbangers are going. I mean, that radio jock where you only got to know her by her lips and her face, she was connected. They're like calling her and shit. And the Warriors are on 3rd Street now. Well,
that was the late great Lynn Thigpen.
If the other gangbangers had a radio, they would have known exactly where you guys were. There would have been a problem.
And you know, I also have a lot of fun with being representing. I have to mention the late great Paul Greco was leader. He passed away several years ago. But being part of the Orphans is, you know, has been something. I've learned more about the movie from the fans than actually being in it. Like, I didn't know that back in '72, I got a Puerto Rican flag tattooed on my arm because, you know, I'm proud of who I am. And I didn't realize that in the whole film, there's only one flag in the movie, and it's mine. And I never realized that because you see it on film. So little things like that I've learned from fans of the movie.
See, I wouldn't have realized that either. I just remember the iconic moments of the kid clanging the glass bottles, trying to get you guys to come out. When you fade the black at the end, and you're hearing Don Henley or the Eagles in the background, which perfectly fit that film, by the way. The big Ferris wheel. So there's stuff that we remember. There was a washroom brawl, if I remember right.
Yes, that was supposed to be 14th Street. That was the punks with the roller skates, and I mean, it's just fun. It's fun to be a part of that, and the Warriors means, you know. Also, when the video game came out, that gave it a big push too, because I remember when I was working at the time with people with full-blown AIDS, and that's what I used to do. And I remember being in this train station. All of a sudden, I seen all these ads for the Warriors video game, and I see myself, and it was pretty exciting. And I didn't know, and I never played video games. I'm more of an old school, put my money in the jukebox kind of guy. But to have my daughter at the time, and her friends say, "Bobby, you're a video villain," was really cool, you know, in a way, yeah.
Hey, talking about your daughter, is she older than the movie, or is the movie older than she is?
No, she's younger than the movie. We did the movie in '78. My daughter wasn't born until '85, and which was the greatest day of my life. It actually helped deliver her at 8:47 p.m. on 4/27/85. I remember it well.
So she was born when Freestyle was born.
Yep. She's in fact, she's she was born. I always tell her she was born the year of crack. You know, at one time I was working with. This is a funny story. I was working with Donny Osmond, believe it or not, and he turned out to be a really, really cool guy. And so this is when I was working with AMI Productions when we were managing New Edition, Bobby Brown, Colonel Abrams, and we had John Waite also on the roster. But we had Donnie for a brief period of time, and he had just 50s 8x10s. And he's a really cool guy. And he was like, "Apache, what do you think it is?" I go, "Oh, let me fix it for you." So I put the word crack. I had this little sticker, put crack on his head.
Great.
And he started laughing. I thought he was going to take it away, but he started laughing. He said, "Let me autograph the kid." He said, "Dear Apache, thanks for last night." Donnie was crazy, but yeah, I lose track, so you got to keep me in line.
So your daughter being younger than the movie, you know, she's growing up with Dad kind of being an iconic figure, but then again, Dad was doing 9 to 5s too. So maybe she didn't have the full scope. She didn't have the full scope of what you had become as a result of the movie. How is it that she ended up buying all in to kind of become a road manager for you? I mean, she could have just said, "That's what Dad used to do, and let me do my thing." But I've seen pictures of the two of you together at these conventions. It's crazy.
Yeah, we're very tight. I mean, we used to tag team against my wife. You know, she's Daddy's girl, and I used to take her up 9th Avenue to go to her rehearsals at the Metropolitan Opera. And at that time, I was a caseworker for the Division of AIDS Services in New York City, and a lot of my clients were, hustling up 42nd in that area. And a lot of them weren't, were transvestites or transsexual, and they were hustling in the streets. Unfortunately, they had AIDS, and they would see me taking jazz up 9th Avenue, and they would say, "Mr. Ramos," and I was like, I can't help you now, blah, blah, blah. And they would see my daughter. My daughter would look at them, and she was like, "Dad, is that a boy or a girl?" And I was like, "They're whatever they want to be." And as she got older, going to the opera by herself, she got to meet them, and she had that kind of background. We've always been very, very close. But now, my daughter, after she got married to a wonderful man named Gregory Landis, she had a son, which is what my wife always wanted, and now they tag team against me. But thank God they just recently had a daughter named Santana. And she's going to be on my side now.
Well, there you go. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with more with Apache Ramos.
You got it. Yeah, I think my daughter helped me a lot because she knew I was born in 1950.
AM 1590 WCGO Radio, where Chicago goes for the Celebrity Conversations. Continuing our conversation with Apache Ramos, who you may or may not remember from the Warriors, which, was 1978 ago, which takes me to my freshman year of high school. We have also talked a little bit about his history in the music industry, which is where I first met you through Criminal Records and Nelson Fast Forward Cruise, and we've talked a lot about the Warriors reunions type things that are going on a regular basis. Now you guys are doing more screenings and more reunions. You could tell us a little bit about that, and then tell me about some of the types of fans that show up to this stuff. I've seen pictures, and we could talk forever, but I've seen pictures where people they're like dressing up in the vest and stuff. They want to be you guys, and then they're posing with you guys as if they're honorary warriors. It's insane.
Yeah, it's like a one big family. I particularly, most people like to dress up either as the Warriors, they like the vest, or the Furies, which is a combination of a baseball team and Kiss, a bit to me. But I do get a bunch of orphans showing up, and it's funny when I see guys with big froze with the green shirt, orphans, talking about we're going to rain on you, or carrying the little newspaper clippings. It's really kind of an honor, to be part of that, and that's why I like being there, and I have so many people, into it. Everybody likes the different gangs in the movie, and they come dressed up as it. It's amazing.
I'm not lucky enough to live in New York. I wish I was, because coming in September, you guys are doing a screening, and Larry Gordon and Walter Hill are both confirmed to be there. That is equivalent to if West Side Story was going to have a meet and greet with the makers, Leonard Bernstein or whoever it was.
Yeah.
I mean, that event is not sold out now. It's going to be sold out because people are so into. It's a culture. It's a movement now. It's crazy to think that you all are going to be together, same place, same time. With the producers, directors, and then with cast members on top of that. That's huge. And that's going to be a TV taping, so that means that at some point, even those of us in Chicago will be able to catch up to it, no?
Yeah, I love Chicago, man. I lived there briefly as a child, for about a year and a half. I remember it being very cold. But I remember my favorite, one of my favorite stops when I was on tour with New Edition and Ready for the World, and it was Chicago. I always had a good time there. In fact, I signed an artist out of there on Streetwise Records. Unfortunately, the label folded before our record came out. And that's Screaming Rachel Kane, who now runs Trax Records out of Chicago. In fact, Screaming Rachel and I go way back. I don't want to say how long, but she's also, we just recently did a scene together because she's in one of the films I'm in. I brought her in, introduced her, and she's doing a soundtrack also for Vampires 3. We did Vampires 1 and Vampires 2. Now this one's Vampires 3. And music is coming out of the house music of Trax Records out of Chicago. We also, there's a cut from the son of Big Pun. There's also cut a track for Vampires 3.
I'm glad that you mentioned Screamin' Rachel because we just finished here in Chicago with the Chosen Few picnic, which is in its 30th or 31st year at Washington Park. And this is a weekend where every year they always estimate the crowds at 40,000. And it's a house music festival. And it's outdoors. And whether it's rain or shine, these house heads come out. Which, of course, house music, Chicago's been credited with bringing out house music in the same way that New York was credited with popularizing freestyle. It is such a nostalgic time now, and it almost seems, and maybe you could tell me if I'm wrong, it almost seems as if people are looking to go back to when things were a little less complicated, a little more innocent. It might be about music and a movie. It's not about colors and territory and the insanity that's happening now in this world.
Yeah, I agree in what you're saying there. The nostalgia, I mean, as you know, I'm very big on Throwback Thursdays, and I come up with lots of stuff. But music, was a little more fun back then. I can remember being on tour with the Fat Boys. They were like the Black Three Stooges, man, with Prince Marky D and Cool Rock Ski and the late great Puff Love, who passed away. And I think also, in terms of the Warriors thing, it's just that we're getting so much older now, We're all in our 60s or late 60s now, and, people want to see us before we, exit stage left.
It's funny that you say it that way, but, I with the school that I used to go to, and with the Boys and Girls Club that I used to run, every year I'm the one that winds up responsible for putting together some of these reunions, which you may or may not have noticed on my Facebook. And sometimes I say, you know what, I've had enough of this, I'm the only one that ever does anything for these things. But the bottom line is, people do want to reconnect. People don't always necessarily want to do the legwork, but they'll be at the reunion. And I guess that's similar to you and your buddies and everybody you came up with, both in the music industry and in the movie industry, because both are celebrating anniversaries. Freestyle's in its 30th year, if you talk about when TK and the Cover Girls were launched, and then the Warriors are going to be in their 40th year before you know it.
when I get that little residual check from the Warriors, it still has my mother's Bronx, my rest in peace, my mother's address in the Bronx, 2885 Valentine Avenue in the Bronx. Yeah, I was born in the Bronx. I was born in Brooklyn, raised in the Bronx. I think that's why my blood is B positive.
Hey, let me ask you. I forgot what I was going to ask you. I was so into what you were talking about. Oh, I know. Let me ask you this: when the movie was coming out, because you look at the name, Walter Hill and Larry Gordon, so it's difficult to imagine that they had a background which would allow them to understand the life on the streets back in the late '70s. When they were recruiting you all to be a part of the movie, did they also ask you for your feedback in terms of the streets and the lingo and the clothes and things like that?
Well, let me tell you, I had an agent at the time, and I had graduated in 1976 from Hampshire College in Amherst, Mass, where I studied theater. I had my own group at the time called Moto Theater. And when I got back to New York, I wanted to really be an actor, but I had studied playwriting, and I knew I could get my plays off. So I had an agent at the time because I was friends with a guy named Treat Williams, who's an actor that you may know. I was good friends with his sister. And they sent me to a lot of stuff. I didn't get a lot of stuff. I got rejected a lot. At that point, I was very frustrated. So I had my pro. Everybody had a pro back then. And I had a black T-shirt with silver letters that said the Bronx. I had cut off shorts. And I had a bottle of rum because I really didn't care. And I was sitting in at Paramount Pictures with a whole bunch of people auditioning for these roles. And I was sitting next to this guy, and we're talking, blah, blah, blah. And I gave him a taste of the rum, and he disappeared. And when they called my name, I went inside. It turned out to be Walter Hill. We already had a long conversation, so I guess he knew, a little more about me than I wanted him to know. And he hired me on the spot. I didn't even read a line or nothing. He said, "Patrick, you mad real." He didn't say mad real. He said, "You're real." And he got the part. I wish I'd met you sooner when he got your spot with the Warriors. Who knows if that's true or not, but it was really nice. And he was, he on purpose, when we saw the script, especially the late Paul Greco and I, the Orphans, we didn't have a lot to work with, And Walter purposely did not let us see who the Warriors are until we actually shot. And Paul Greco and I, we rehearsed, we hit it off right away. And he's like, we got to make the Orphans, even though we don't have nothing to work with, we got to make them believable, and hopefully we'll be in the film. Because we still thought we was going to get cut out. And when we saw the Warriors, being that we were both street kids, we were like, oh man, we could do this, So I think it came off pretty good. We're kind of like the Rodney Dangerfield of movie Street Gang.
Well, in a way, because if you look at the movie, there's the famous speech by Cyrus where seemingly there are thousands and thousands of gangbangers. I don't know if they called them gangbangers back at the time. And he makes this big old speech. And back in 1978, they couldn't do computer-generated people. So however you guys filmed it, and it seems like there's thousands of people inside of some kind of pit somewhere.
Riverside Park. It was Riverside Park, which is a fairly big park. And everybody got like $50 to show up, and the people, of course the Orphans weren't invited, which is a whole shtick in the film, but the people I've talked to, because I've met, it was a very good movie for black and Latino actors, because a lot of people got work. So from what I heard, it was like they got $50 and they did the scene like 11 times, that whole last scene. They did it 11 times from what I heard. Also the Baldies, they got like $100 to shave if they wanted to shave their heads. I can remember that. But yeah, they did have hundreds of actors in that film. I've met a lot of people that told me, yeah, I was in the Warriors, I was in that crowd scene, yeah.
Well, but you're one of the few that you could actually go through chapters on a DVD or rewind on a VHS, and you could see your image. You could say, hey, there's Apache, because I remember doing that myself when I first became aware of the connection that you and I had. Besides the music, I was like, okay, now let's find this Apache guy, and there he was. So you're there in a very important scene because the gangs are kind of crossing paths. and then one gang has to decide if they're going to let the others go. So it was kind of one of these, we're either going to have a beat down or there's going to be a sign of respect. And in the movie, at some point, you guys gained your respect, but it took a minute.
Yeah, from what I've heard from people that I meet at these conventions, I really looked at time, and I was part of that time, and the fact that I looked it so well, people remember it, and I think my hat, the Puerto Rican flag, I'm a social worker, and I was in the South Bronx for 15 years, and people will always, you're that guy, and just recently somebody else recognized me. It's funny because I don't look nothing like that now, but I guess they follow me on Facebook. It's just a nice feeling that I can make somebody feel good just because they saw me do something back in 1978, and it really helped me out a lot in the South Bronx, and also when I was working with people with full-blown AIDS in Hell's Kitchen during the AIDS crisis in the 90s. I mean, you have to volunteer for that unit. And when I left the record business, I wanted to do something because I was already having people dying that I had known. We called it grits back then. Yeah. And people were very afraid to go in there. And I just felt it was my duty to volunteer and get that job to work with people with full-blown AIDS, especially since I was so involved in the music business and the clubs and all that. It was very tough times from 1990 to 1999. I served the people who nobody wanted to deal with,
Well, yeah, at the time, there was except for Magic Johnson, and people really didn't understand.
That happened in my office, I think it was 1994. It was crushing. It was just crushing. I mean, I must have been involved in like 300 deaths in New York City.
Oh, no.
And the area I worked with. I mean, I was drinking heavily at the time, too, and I kept journals because I saw so much death. And then people would say to me, who would recognize me from the Warriors, they would say, "Why are you here?" And I was like, "I'm here for you. That's something that I did briefly in a moment of time. But I'm here for you." I mean, that's in my nature to give, because I come from nowhere. There's nowhere in hell I should have been anything, and especially the way I've grown up. When I grew up, with a lot of stories I'd rather not talk about, but the murders and stuff like that, but I just always wanted to give, and nobody wanted to work with this population, and I wasn't afraid, because people were very afraid. I mean, nobody wanted to touch you. I mean, it was like, I don't know, do you remember the movie Papillon with Steve McQueen?
I actually don't remember that.
Yeah, Papillon, and when he has the thing with the leopard that passes the cigar, and that was the way, to include them. That's the way I kind of felt, My people were dying, and all kinds of good people. I had to be there for them, and that's what I felt I had to do. And I'm really proud of that time. In fact, I get choked up even talking about it, because it's still very emotional, all the good people I see. Even the clients clients, I call them more friends, but even clients that gave me very hard times that I had to help get out of prison. I mean, there were people, and they were suffering from a disease that nobody really wanted to care for. I'm so happy that people are living now. I mean, they weren't living back then. It was very, very tough. Recently I found one of my old clients, Mr. Ramos, on Facebook, and I was very glad that they were still alive, but those are tough times.
Well, that gives us something else in common, because I did youth work for so long with the Boys and Girls Clubs, and when you're doing youth work, eventually these kids grow up, and some of them make great decisions, and some of them make not so good decisions.
Exactly.
And then, a lot of them, well, if you followed me on Facebook, a lot of these club kids who are now adults, they're still clicking on me, and we're still keeping in contact, and it's...
That's beautiful. I mean, doesn't that make you feel so good?
Yeah.
I remember my daughter, when I took her out of private school because she was getting too soft, I put her in public school, and I raised her in Union City in New Jersey, and to give you a background, Union City, they call it Little Cuba, because it's the second largest Cuban population outside of Miami. And I took her out of there, and she would wear my Puerto Rican flag jacket, and all her friends did not have fathers, and which I was familiar with because I didn't have one either. And they all became like they would all be in my house, and they all became like my little daughters. And now they're grown, beautiful women. And let me tell you, the kids don't forget what you do for them, because they hook me up every Father's Day.
Hey, before we go, I don't want to forget, as I look at the promotion for this event in September, it's a tribute to Andrew Laszlo, and I'm not going to pretend to know who Andrew Laszlo is, but if you're doing an event in his name, then he's got to be important to you and your movement.
I don't, you got me there because I'm okay. I don't know who Andrew Laszlo is, but I'm sure he's related to some kind of functional thing. We have a promoter who's doing this event. He did the one last year, Eric Wolf Newhouse, and he's doing an amazing job, like getting like Walter Hill and these people together. I'm not, I help promote it in terms of, 15th to the 18th, but the intricacies and the details, I'm just glad that the Orphans are invited this time.
Well, there's so many that were in the path of the Warriors. You can't remember everybody, I guess. Or maybe they thought that you guys were going to cause some conflict, because it's a movie about gangs. And actually, when you think about it, it wasn't necessarily a movie about gangs. It was a movie about relationships. It was a social commentary, and the impact, boy, to this day, it's crazy. And one of my favorite investments in the last few years is when they had a special edition of the DVD. So it wasn't just a movie; it was like these little snippets of stuff. And that's when you find out that you guys are reuniting, and there's fan events, and it's kind of crazy. It's kind of neat too.
And the Warriors have become such a big part of pop culture. I remember Shaquille O'Neal saying, "Can you dig it?" when he won the title. I hear references to movie lines like a lot in pop culture. It's embedded into pop culture. And to be a 62, soon to be 63-year-old guy, when I was 24, it's an amazing run. Something I'm quite proud of.
Hey,
I have a lot of gold and platinum records on my wall. In fact, a friend of mine, David Goody, just fixed one for me, which fell off. The labels are falling off them. They're still old, but it's nothing like being in the Warriors. I mean, I get action figures handmade by actual fans, but they make it. They just like they want to be part of the Orphans. I make people honoring orphans. I came up with this thing called Orphanet, which I have this whole thing. It's just a big family thing. I mean, Debbie Van Valkenburg is still, my daughter calls her Titi Mercy. I mean, she still keeps in touch. My daughter and her are very tight. It's an amazing cast. Michael Beck and David Harris and Dorsey Wright and Thomas Wade. So it's just like my favorite guys. We do things together. I always make them laugh all the time, but it's fun to be part of that team, and we look out for each other. And when we do get together, it's a warm thing to embrace the fans. It's the people that love us. I call it the universal worldwide warrior family. Yeah.
It's kind of neat too with the music when you think about that whole Boston sound, the East Coast sound. When you think about that, even now, with New Edition or the New Kids or Bobby Brown, some of those sounds have again come back after so much time. The nostalgia is like, it's like I told my son, I said, well, what's old is what's new now. It's crazy.
Yeah, because something hits a nerve and it reminds you of a time. And as we grow older, we lose people and we gain people. And each moment of time is, and especially music. Music is the answer, like Colonel used to say. Music is the answer. It brings back a lot of memories and good times. Some of them bad, but you still remember them,
Hey, tell me about how other fans could be up to date on what you're doing with either your own self or with the Warriors movement or even with the music. And
I have my daily rise and grind every morning, and I'm part of all these different little groups. But I have my Apache Ramos on Facebook. You can reach me there, and I have my rise and grind. And I just recently came back from vacation, and when I go on vacation, I try not to even go on Facebook because I'm on vacation. And people will start calling my daughter, "Is your dad?" Because, people do. I had some health problems a couple of years ago, and I'm trying to keep up with it. But, hey, is your dad all right? Is your dad all right? So if I don't post, I get a lot of, I get people upset. So worried about me. So, and I enjoy it. Every day I try to think of something new, a new image. to bring back some old memories and stuff.
Well, I know I selfishly have got to get through and get one of those. You do like signed photos and stuff now at these.
Oh yeah. They can inbox me on Facebook, and I give you my address, and you send $20 and stuff. What do you call it? Self-enclosed envelope, and boom, I do that. I used to do it for free until my daughter found out about it, and because she saw I would sign things for free, and then they would wind up on that when people would sell it. So my daughter was like, "Dad, don't sign nothing because people are going to sell it." So that's why I stopped doing that. So, and the money goes to my grandchildren's college fund. I have a grandson who's 5 years old named Hendrix, after Jimmy, and I have a new granddaughter who's 3 months old named Santana Ruby Ray. So you can see my music influences on my daughter.
That's crazy. Well, I will, and I know we've talked about this before, but I got to get out and order a piece for my own Wall of Fame, just because, the fact that we know each other, but also because it's become an iconic thing, and I don't want to be the only one left that doesn't have one of these pieces. When I look online, and there's two, right? There's Apache Ramos, which is yourself, and then there's an Orphans page too on Facebook. I forgot the name of it, but there.
Yeah, my fans made that page, and a good friend of mine, David Guti, made that page for me, and it's been real. It's called the Orphans. We got a heavy rep, and it's been a lot of fun because people like to. I learned what that is called memes, where they put my face on different things.
Oh, they were doing that with John Cena for a long time.
Yeah, so that's always a lot of fun. I wake up in the morning and see, like recently they had one. I'm the second most famous orphan, and it had my face as Little Orphan Annie.
That's crazy.
I thought that was pretty funny. But the Orphans page, and my page, Apache Ramos, and just inbox me, send me a self-addressed stamp envelope, and I'll hook you up, Roman, no problem.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do that, and I have to thank you for taking time out. It's been a long time. I mean, it's great that we met each other back in the day through Criminal Records, and we kept in contact. But it's even greater now because in the back of my mind, and I know we've traded notes throughout the years, I kept saying, gotta interview that guy. And then I hadn't been able to make it happen either through busyness or laziness. And then every time I saw somebody else had interviewed, I was so jealous. I was professionally jealous. So I figured I better get this thing done, and then hopefully somewhere along the line during this interview, I was able to get something out of you that nobody else had ever gotten, and then that'll be my pay for having been able to track you down and get this interview done. It's been a blast.
It's been fun. It's been fun. My wife just walked in the door, and I had a lot of fun talking to you. And you can call me anytime, bro. I'm pretty easy. And the weekends is my easy time. The rest of the week, I'm working, doing something on some kind of project and stuff. But weekends, anytime, pop.
Gotcha. I'll let you get back to family life. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Apache Ramos.
Before I go, I have to say one thing. We're going to rain on you Warriors.
Yeah, well, that's funny, too, because I was going to say before you go, can you do a drop for me so I could use throughout the variety of interviews, and that's the type of drop that we could use.
All right, so I'll do it for you, whatever you need, Pop.
Whenever you're ready, whatever comes off your head. I'm not giving you a script.